Hello and welcome back to our Shooter Bot AI series. In this episode we're going to add some dynamic behavior to our bot to make them basically avoid the player's sight and try and move around us and try and shoot at us from different angles. Just adds a bit more dynamic gameplay to your shooter, and also makes it a bit more believable. So we're going to be using EQS for this solution, and we're going to be using the EQS testing pawn here to test stuff out to see how it all works. So let's get started with this. So the first thing we need to do is create a new EQS asset. We go to AI, an environmental query, and we'll call this one the combat EQS. Okay. So the combat EQS is going to be quite simple. So what it's going to do is going to spawn a series of points around the character, the AI that is, and it's going to determine whether or not the player is looking at that point, and if they are, then I'm going to choose a point to either side of the AI randomly. So for this we need to first of all generate the points. So we go from the root, drag down, and choose generate points on the pathing grid. Now what this will do is it will generate points on the nav mesh itself. That way we're guaranteed to only get points that we can actually navigate to. So we're going to go to path to item is ticked OK, and we're going to change maybe the grid space between here to 250, and we're going to generate around the query. Hit save, minimize this, and I'm going to add this to my testing pawn here. So go down to testing pawn details, and I'm going to drag that onto it there. Okay, so we should now see all these points generate around him like so. Now I'm going to actually turn this down a bit so it's not too many. I'm going to change that from 1000 to 500. That's a bit better. Okay, so what we're going to do is now look at where the points are that we want him to possibly move to. So first of all, I only want to move side to side and close to that direction. So don't go forward or backwards. So we have to filter out what ones they are. So I'm going to go into our EQS, and we're going to add first of all a dot test. Now the dot test is going to simply filter out our our points that are not either to the side, that are behind the enemy and also in front of the enemy. So with this in mind, what we do, go to the right hand side on the test, change it from filter and score just to filter, and we're going to open up the dot settings here and go open up line A and line B. Okay, so line A, we want to change the rotation context here from the querier to the player. Now at the moment we don't have a player context here, so we're going to have to create one. So let's go down here and add a new blueprint class. And I'm going to search for a EQS or query context. So environmental query context. And we're going to call this one target. And autosave doesn't interrupt me. Target context. Okay, now what we're going to do here for this context is we're going to be taking the AI controller of the pawn and seeing who it is focusing on. That way it's going to be only looking at with the current target that it is shooting at. So go to your functions, go to override, and we're going to provide a single actor. Now the actor we're going to provide here, as I said, is going to come from the query actor. We'll drag this down, and you want to get AI controller. Now, when we're doing this, we do want to check if the AI controller is valid, because at the start of the game, it won't be valid. So let's put that in there into an is valid node, and put that through there. Okay, so if it is valid, we're going to put that to the return node, and the resulting actor is going to be the AI controller's focus target. So go type in focus, and you want to get focus actor. Plugging it into your returning node there. Compile and save that, and we can finish that off there. So back on our dot, we can click on our dot test, go to the right hand side and look at the rotation setting, and we're going to change the rotation here to use the target context. Hit save. Now, what's going to happen here is that it's going to take the rotation of the current target and look at where they're facing in the world. And if it's facing the same direction as that point, then that will make it a value of 1 or invalid or valid. So the problem with this is testing it is quite difficult, because obviously we're looking at a target actor, which isn't necessarily always going to be visible, because when you're an editor, that doesn't exist. So what we're going to do is do a little tweak on this to make it work for us in editor, to test it out and show you how to work this. So when we got this is valid going up here, I'm just going to make a little bypass and get actor of class. And the actor is going to be the player character, so first person character. I'm going to hook that up directly to the return node and plug the return value in there. So we've got a slight bypass here, just so we can test it out and show you the values. Okay, so for this I'm going to move my character up towards the point so you can see the two of them together. There we go. Okay, so let's click on our testing point again. Okay, so now we've got this filtering going on here. Now, at the moment, it's using the player's rotation to match it. And the filter, like I said on it, the filter is currently by default set to only take the ones that matches the point of 0, which is those in line with it. Which isn't what we really want. We want to get a little bit of a tiny bit of a spread here. So I'm going to go into my target, my combat EQS, and we're going to go down to the range here, and we're going to tick absolute value. And what that means is that we're going to look at dot targets between -1 and 1, but we're going to ramp them up to 1 and 0. So if the dot target's returning -1, it'll become 1. If it's returning -0.5, it becomes 0.5. So what that allows us to do is that we can look at the front and back side of each item. I'm going to change the test mode also to heading, just so it makes it not take into account of vertical placement as well. Okay, so with that done, we're going to go down to our filter, and we want to change the filter to be a maximum of 0.5. Now what you'll see here is you see a little cone radius coming out of the AI, both to the left and both to the right. So these non-blue ones are the viable options it can choose. Okay. So let's add some more tests in here so you can decide which one to choose from. So back on that combat EQS, we're going to right click, add test, and we're going to add the test for distance. And for the distance one, we're going to look at just scoring it. And the score, we're going to look at the distance from each point to the querier. Now the querier, we want to make sure it picks like a further one away, not just one just to the left or just to the right. We want to make sure it picks one that's quite a fair distance. So if I hit save on here and go back to this, you can see here it's going from 0 to 1 on either side, which is what we want. Okay, so he will now run to these points there and there. Next thing we want to do is going to do a trace. So we want to make sure that he goes to a point where he can still shoot at the player, because he doesn't want him to go to a different place and won't be able to attack the player. We want him to always be wanting to attack the player. So we want to make sure that the trace is going to be working on our context. So on the right hand side, go down to the filter and score and change it to filter only. And we're going to change the context over to target context. Now, when you go into here, you'll see that they're all gone blue. That's because they all can see the player, therefore they're all filtered out. So what you want to do here is you want to turn ball match off. And what that means is that it has to be a false return in order for it to be filtered out. So if something was blocking this view here, just to show you this. That there. You can now see that these ones are now blocked out because they can't see the player. Okay, so the enemy won't go between there. And you can probably start seeing now how cover works as well. We'll get to that in the next episode. But nonetheless, here we are. Okay, so he is going to pick a direction to go because we're going to make him pick from the top certain percentage. And we'll randomly move around. What else can we do? Well, first of all, we wanted to make sure he's always running away from the player's point of view. So if the player starts aiming at him, he'll move. So to do that, go back to a combat EQS, right click, add another test, this time a dot. And on the dot here, we're going to do a filter only. Now the filter, we're going to look at the rotation of the player, so the target. So change the rotation here to target context. And then we're going to look at line B. So line A is the one vector, and that vector we're using is the rotation of the player. The other vector we're going to take a note of for the dot is looking at the rotation, so the 2 points from the item to the player. So if I change the line from to line, item, and line 2 to target context, and again tick test mode to heading. And sorry, we want to change line from target context and line 2 to be the item. Item refers, by the way, to each of those little ball things you see. We'll leave it like that for now, and we're going to here. So let's take a look at this. So this, if we turn off all these, we can test this one on its own, and I can change it to score only. So if we change it to score only, what you can see here is those that are directly in front of the player or closest to be in front of the player are now 1, and those to the side are less so. Okay, so that basically just then allows us to select all the ones in front of us that are going to be filtered out. So to filter them out, we're going to change that to filter only, and we're going to go down to the bottom to the filter settings and change the filter to be a maximum, and the float value max is going to be a value of 0.8. Hit save, and let's see how that looks. We may have to tweak that a little bit. Yeah, let's tweak that a bit down by 0.9, and okay, looking not too bad. A bit less, 0.95. Okay, there you go. So you start seeing this line in front of the player being taken out of context. So if I move this pawn over here a little bit, we can see that this line is taken out of and being filtered out. So we're filtering out the line in front of the player, so that way he won't ever pick a point that is in front of the player. So he shouldn't ever run in front of them. So if I go back in here and we tick on the rest of these, hit save, you should end up with something that looks something like this. So the enemy will be able to pick these points either side and dodge the player. So let's assign this to our AI here. Now the AI is going to have it set on the behavior tree. We go to behavior tree, and we're taking a look at this chase sequence at the end here. So we've got move to target actor, and what we want to also do there is do another sequence. And this sequence though, we're going to right click and we're going to add a decorator. The decorator is going to be a is that location. Now, is that location works similar to move to, in that it will just check to see if they're a certain distance away from a blackboard key. So the blackboard key we're going to change to target actor, and the acceptable radius we're going to match to our move to here, which is 1,000. I'm going to change that to 1,000. Okay, so only do this sequence if it is in range of the player. Once it's here, we're going to then drag down, do EQS, and we're going to choose our combat EQS here. And that's going to then take a run mode and change it from single best item to get the best 5%. Then we're going to go up to blackboard key and change that to target location. Then on the sequence, we're going to drag down and do a move to, choosing our target location to be the key. So what's going to happen here is once he's moved towards in range of the player here, he's going to be checked to see if he's in range, is that location. And if he is, it's going to run an EQS query to find a sideways point and then run to that sideways point and then keep going whilst they're still in range. I'm going to hit save there, and close that. And the last thing we need to do is fix our context to work with what the visual attention was. At the moment we've had it changed to work just for testing. So go to your target context, and we're going to drag it down into it is valid again, and drag the resulting actor from our get focus actor. Okay, so let's test this out. So you can see him now dodging and avoiding the player's point of view and eventually killing me. Okay, so very cool, and he will forever keep doing that. This is going to return false because I died. So to fix that, just take this down and go into target context and get focus actor. You want to see if this is valid still as well. Okay, and that's it. We are done. Oh, there he is. Oh, you didn't see me. So if I put my gun at him, he'll avoid my shots. Okay. Still coming out false. Oh, apologies. It's in the shooting service. We'll just do it is valid on this one here. There we go. And that should clear that error. Got me. But there you go. So the enemy now will dodge our attacks. Next we're going to do an evade attack. So he will evade now and then randomly and look for cover. Maybe when he's run out of ammo or getting low on ammo, we'll do it so he runs to hide while reloading. So join us in that part over on patreon.com/RyanLady right now to even watch that part right now for just $1 a month. You get access to all my content well before anyone else. Big thank you to all my patrons and YouTube members for their continued support in supporting me on the channel and on Patreon. It really means a lot to me, so thank you so much. That's all from me in this episode. Thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye everyone.